Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to The Deep Dive. NBA playoffs have officially kicked off. We have weekend number 1 in the books. Every series is underway with game 2 right now being played between the Toronto Raptors and the Philadelphia 76ers to help us break down what we've seen so far and what is maybe my favorite thing that is not generally done when it comes to basketball content.
I thought you were going to say the playoffs are not generally done.
No. It's like everybody does like a big like series previews. Like,
oh no, we're waiting.
Everyone
we want we need a little bit of priors. I want game 1 done with.
Yes,
not just because we normally do this on Mondays.
That's right, exactly. And so it helped us break it all down. Second ever time on the Deep Dive Pod. First time since we've been doing this. Going out to the Twitch stream. So say hello to all of your fans on Twitch. The great JT Spoon from Twitter. Spoon, welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Thanks. I thought I got banished. I think it's 3 years ago. So I'm back with my insights. Should be exciting. And I thought you wanted to bring me. I thought you wanted to bring me on Monday, so I sound a little smarter because I can give you like all 8 game 1 winners, alternate spreads, totals. Like we got them all. I will sound really sharp when we talk about the game 1s.
We were just kind of letting you breathe, letting you do your thing with the Spoon Says. We were like, this guy's got his own show now.
We were worried about bringing you on and
invite you onto my media platform because I was probably going to be. I was going to have like the morning show gigs and all this sort of stuff, but. Yeah, had to cut bait with the Spoon Says for a while. The single take shot on camera. I was like, this is kind of fun, but if I actually want to do this, I should probably learn how to do any sort of editing or technological skills whatsoever. And just so people know, it took me like 10 minutes to even get onto this particular thing. So I'm a long ways away from producing like high level content.
I can tell you that for years and years when we were doing this Super Pirate Radio, the lack of effort was part of the charm. The lack of professionalism.
If I try, then it just, it's not going to be that good. So then it looks like it's just another, bad thing in the sports betting space, as opposed to like the charmingly incompetent, but that's part of the gag aspect.
I think sometimes you can take something like that and say, maybe this guy doesn't know what he's doing with recording or editing or writing a script or coming up with content. Shit, that's a nice scarf. Like, you just throw that scarf in that look in front of the pool. I'm like, I'll watch this. I'm going to watch all 5 minutes.
Lifestyle influencer. Yes. Yeah. No, and let's to anyone who's unfamiliar, who didn't hear our interview with Spoon the first time around, which was, again, amazingly 3 years ago. Although the last 2 playoff series things got all kinds of out of whack. So I think it was 3 years ago when the Raptors won.
The last time there was a real postseason. I only come on for the real playoffs. No bubbles.
Right. None of the asterisks. None of this asterisk shit. Right. Last season there wasn't fans in some arenas. The rest was all out of whack. That doesn't count. So now that we're back with real playoffs, we're bringing Spoon back in. And if you're unfamiliar, there are a handful of people whose opinions I very, very, very much respect in the NBA handicapping space, basketball especially, and you are at the top of the list for NBA opinions. So very appreciative of your time and excited to pick apart what we're seeing so far. But before we get into the postseason, I'm just curious, if you step back and look like kind of macro, the way that the 2021-22 regular season played out, just generally pretty good season. Anything like especially that you were excited or upset about the way that the regular season went?
I'm upset about the fact that the high seeds get screwed in these first round series. I'm going to go ahead and stump for let them pick their opponents. We won't get the high. There should never be an incentive for a high seed to go down. And the other thing with this with the play-in tournament is that like normally we would not have Atlanta in the postseason. We wouldn't have not that I guess the Pelicans are better than the Clippers, but they're kind of playing better. But you would have the Cavs, which is just like a walkover. I don't know if the Hawks are or not, but you're less. If you get like imagine if Brooklyn, Kyrie is out another week and they're 10. In a normal season, they're out, and then they probably still would get the 7 now, and you're just screwed for the high seeds. I guess my thing is, if you're going to play an 82 game slog and we're going to make it pretend like it matters, protect the high seeds. And the best way to do that is you're not going to get screwed by a good team that had an injury and it's underseeded, or you can pick. I mean, the Bulls are just flat out bad, and and the Cavs were bad, and it wasn't their fault. It's just like they were a legit team that suffered injuries. And if a team loses a superstar 2 weeks left in the year, like the high seed should get rewarded with playing them. Why are we locked into this? If you're 1, you play 8. If you're 2, you play 7. Why?
Yeah.
How would you see that? I mean, I think it's probably pretty obvious, but so your top 4 seeds in the East, you just do a draft like right away off the top. The Heat get to pick. I don't know. Would you take the Bulls?
They would have taken the Bulls for sure.
I think you actually do take the Bulls instead of the actual 8 seed, and then
Celtics
probably go with the
Hawks.
You take the Hawks, and then the last 2 maybe a bit of a coin flip, but
Bucks.
The Bucks will take the Raptors,
and then the Sixers are stuck with the Nets. Yeah,
but then that mostly might not be the seed order because Milwaukee probably tries in their last game of the year, and
Philadelphia maybe tries. Yeah.
I mean, you should never be incentivized to lose, just period. And they did a great job with the play-in tournament because, I mean, the 5 team wants to get there because there's such a big gap from 6 to 7. There's a huge gap. All the 7 to 10 is important. Like 10 to 11 is important. Everything's important, but then the top seeds are not incentivized to win. And in cases they were all jockeying. Like, are the Celtics really going to try to win this last game? I mean, that was the whole narrative of that game. People were shocked they were trying. I mean, that's a really bad.
Oh no, but there is some breaking down the game theory behind that. And what were they thinking? Certainly. I mean, I guess it's a confidence thing that you're not afraid of you'll take on anyone, but like
the last
win probability
swing season. Yeah.
The win probability swing for the Celtics winning the title, if they were the 2 seed or the 3 seed, was somewhere in the 15% range. I mean, it was non-trivial.
That's what we decided on. But yeah, the last 4 days of the NBA season in the NBA chat were annoying as fuck. Like, as you guys were trying to decide like which team should be trying, and I mean, to Spoon's point, that's not what we should be trying to figure out. Like, this team is like a 55 win team. Should they be trying to win these last 2 games to move up because they might have to play this team? And really, if you think about it, both 2 seeds, rough. Both 2 seeds got just saddled with super teams coming at their ass.
Deadpan about the Timberwolves, the super team. Just a dead delivery.
They win by double digits, baby.
Plus, I mean, the NBA is all about entertainment and content and all this sort of stuff. I mean, they made up this play-in tournament just to get a week of extra primetime games and give some shine to these mediocre teams. I mean, why not have here's the selection show? You know what? We're the 1 seed and we're not going to play the natural 8. Like, we want the Bulls. Give us the Bulls.
Yeah. Right.
And then you get a whole day's worth of PTIs and all these. Boy, are they going to regret it? And what are the Bulls thinking? It's great content. Just to when you handpick your opponent, you better win.
Yeah,
and
I mean, think about all the nobody believes in us. You could spin about the Bulls narrative there.
So the award we just saw that I was stumping about in the chat, saying like, I don't like award shows. They should just do this where they randomly have like Gary Payton read a tweet that he printed out. Like, that's bad. Like, I just want the award to be like sprung on me like that. I'm fine with that. But and again, I'm just gonna keep doing Timberwolves content
now and not in the end of June.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And also, just surprise us with it early, but I'm gonna keep doing this with Timberwolf content. You tell me who like maybe the bright players are on the actual top 4 seeds. But like that. So like LeBron's The Decision, like that sucked. That show sucked. Everybody watched it, but it sucked. Things like that suck. The draft lottery sucks. I would watch this, and it couldn't be like a team official. You need to get your most disrespectful player. and I said, I'm going to do this with the Timberwolves. Like, if the Timberwolves were a top 4 seed, like Patrick Beverley in a room, just like think player haters ball style stuff where he just he has to say 2 mean things.
7, like, wait, they picked us, and then Pat Bev could live
reaction. Yeah, live reaction from Pat Beverly.
Reaction from the 5 through 8 seeds, like seeing the team that called them out, and then
Oh yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
like I
No,
said,
that,
I don't want
I'm fully on
a
board.
front office or a coach or none of that. We just no. I want like a player, and they're like, we're gonna stop these guys. They stink.
What about what happens? Yeah, the Pat Beverly
I would want.
calling
They
it
should.
calling
I would want 2
calling
hours of
Westbrook
that.
trash was one of the highlights of the entire season. But the how does round 2 work? Do you reseed every round, or does it fall into natural seeding?
I think you have to, right?
Okay.
I mean, I guess I understand logistically it'd be really hard because series go different lengths, and the way they do it now, they guarantee those ABC games on that second weekend. So they always have. You see where like the ones are always matched up against the 4s. If you look at how the schedules end, are on the same day.
Yeah.
So they're guaranteed to have game. You either get a game 7 or a game 1.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be a little trickier if those didn't work out. So
yeah, maybe once you fix your bracket, there's no reseeding. But either way,
one
the
has to
idea
play
that
4 and 2 has to play 3. But
as long as we're completely rebuilding the NBA playoffs instead of talking about them, which I'm fine with. Like people, I mean, it isn't like shitheads like us bringing it up. Like I've seen legitimate talk about just a 16-team bracket rather than conferences. Like, is that interesting at all?
I mean, East versus West is a little complicated because the imbalance of schedule, but certainly the idea of conferences mattering and divisions mattering for seeding, all of that doesn't really strike me as competitively optimal at all. And I guess we are kind of spinning what should they do to fix things. Like 5 years ago, if you had been like, hey, there's this crazy idea, I would have been like, stop, nothing doesn't need to be fixed, like everything's fine, like stop. But then this play-in has made the last third of the regular season like watchable. like the tanking that went on in the years that preceded them changing the rules about the way that the lottery went, and then having the ability to play in, like, man, March and April, 3/4 of the games on any given night were just absolutely unwatchable. And at least this season, like, there was tanking, but it wasn't like so aggressive that you really were like, well, I'm gonna just watch March Madness and I'll come back to the NBA when we get to the playoffs. They did. I think they really absolutely did help the game, which I guess I would have.
Some of the tanking was great.
Some of the tanking was great, yes, but it was in the proportionality wise, it was a tiny sliver compared to where it used to be. And I guess so. In the pantheon of great decisions, they also changed the rules this year, and they're not calling as many fouls on the 3. In general, not calling as many fouls in general, I think. I guess
wait, we're filming this in April, not November.
Sure.
That did go on. Remember that first week of the year where every game went under? And then because that was the point of emphasis, and then all of a sudden they kind of forgot, and now we get 255-point playoff games.
Yeah, but I guess just in general, do you think that was a solid improvement for the watchability and the just the competitive nature?
Yeah, I mean there was nothing worse than like the defender jumping 2 feet from the guy, and the attacker would jump into the defender, and the refs would give them the call, and you were just, why?
Yeah.
Like, don't reward. It's not a natural basket. Hey, if the guy fouls him outside, he does. But most, what would you say? Half the perimeter fouls that were in the act, not like hand checks, but just like they weren't anything. The offensive player created all the contact, and they would give it to him every time. Yeah. And you're just like, what? And it was like, that must be the way they're told to officiate, because it wasn't like this ref calls it, or it was never like that was a mistake. It just seemed like that's the way they wanted it called.
Yeah, 1 out of 5 was like
casual,
actually like drawn by a unique or a nice slippery play was drawing the foul. The rest of it was all.
You used to have to pump fake the shit out of a guy, and he would do such a poor job of jumping up and forward that he had no choice but to like follow you. When you jumped up, his hands were on your hands. Like the thing where you could kick your legs out, like as a casual, I hated that. Like that's not a foul. He kicked him. Like he should be in trouble for kicking the other guy. That's 100% what they were doing. So
you just put yourself in the defender's shoes. What did the defender do there? He jumps up. He's actually moving out of the way to not crash into the guy, and then the offensive player lean over into him, and that's somehow a foul. You're like, the defender did nothing wrong.
I will also say that like it was such a prohibitively punishing thing to give, a good shooter 3 free throws that like it changed the ways the refs then balance things out, because they were like, if one team was consistently doing it, Harden, and the other team was like, well, we can't have 40 free throws for this team and 12 for this team. So they like, it just changed the whole way the game was called, and refs were a bigger part of it. It really felt to me like this season refs were like neither seen nor heard. It was a beautiful regular season from a ref.
You didn't watch the Clippers Timberwolves game.
Well, we get to the play-in, and it was the Scott Foster show, as it always is. But that was
the NBA play-in tournament featuring Scott Foster. Right?
That's right.
It's like a Coachella poster. Yeah, he's one of the bigger names.
That's right. So no, I think just overall, like it was a really fun regular season of betting. I ran as well as I'll ever run in my life, I'm sure. So it only goes down from here. So I'll have to remember this season. But we enter this playoffs now, and I guess at first I thought, well, there's a bunch of competitive series. This is going to be great. Like it's wide open. And then I saw the round 1 games play out, and now I'm thinking we're probably going to get a bunch of short series in round 1. Am I being a slave to recency bias here, and are there a couple series that you could point to be like, yeah, people think that's going to be pretty quick, but I wouldn't, not so fast?
No, I agree with you. I mean, Denver, Golden State on paper might be okay. It's not. Utah and Dallas, obviously that was probably like the most competitive one aside from Boston, Brooklyn, and that could be over pretty quick if Luka's out. I don't even remember. Atlanta, Miami stinks. Like most of these,
Toronto was supposed to be competitive, but they all got hurt.
Sorry, yes. Yeah. I mean, Toronto looked to be like, that was the live dog or whatever, and maybe they're on their way out pretty quick. It's kind of disappointing. I would say the team and the series that I'm most worried about, like my strong, I probably had 3 strongly held opinions coming in. Or they're like 3. My biggest bet on the game ones was Philly. Minus 4.5, minus 105. Like this team is 55% on a neutral against Toronto. That's just like not right.
Yeah.
And but I didn't bet a ton of series where like I tweeted about the Nurse Doc Rivers thing is very real. I mean, Doc's blown 69 game-winning, clinching series, 3-1 leads, and Nurse is, in my opinion, the best coach in the NBA. So, and then, you don't get Thibault for 3 games in Toronto. There were reasons not to like the series, but game 1 was just like the home run spot there for the Sixers. And so I guess I feel sharp on that one. The neutral one is like, I like Brooklyn. I took Brooklyn series. I would the opener of whatever.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
what price did you get involved? You took Brooklyn series.
Yeah, 125. I would have taken those openers with Boston. I would have taken as well. Like, I don't think either team was plus 115 and up.
Okay. Let's start here then. Let's start here.
I want to hear the third one.
Well, yeah. What was the third one?
The one I was wrong. No past posting that I'm some genius. I love Memphis.
Yeah.
I think Memphis is really good. I feel like everyone's they're a fraud or whatever. They're not. They're really good. I thought they were going to dominate the Wolves, and I really, really was excited to bet them like plus odds in a series they're going to have home court with Golden State. I'm higher than the market on Memphis. I'm lower than the market on Golden State. And I'm like, this is it. I'm going to bet a shitload on Memphis in the second round. And now one game in, I'm like, oh my God, this is so, I don't know what you're doing this stuff. Like,
you might get a better number now. You might get a better number after the Wolves. That defensive stinker. And
when you're trying to figure out what happens in a playoff series, like why did this team lose? Is this scary? Is there an overreaction? And that just seems so repeatable. The Wolves, like the scary things with Memphis where their half court offense bogs down and they don't have experience. And those were things I wasn't worried about Minnesota exploiting. Minnesota's a front running team. The Wolves play style is the Wolves are like they're young and they're brash and they love to play from front. They dominate bad teams. We said the Lakers game we were laughing about, like when they're feeling themselves, they're really good. but they don't beat anybody good all season long. Every spot, like, though, this is a big game for the young Wolves. Will they show up? No, they lose every time they were playing the Phoenixes and of the world.
Yeah, the one fucking game I went to was Harden's first game, and like Harden looked like he had never missed a game, and Embiid looked like, just
I remember that.
Wilton Kareem had a baby, and he was just throwing his ass around, knocking people down. Like they lost by like 30. They looked horrible. Yep. Or even in parts of the game versus the Clippers, like, oh no, like they're doing that thing where the other team is showing signs of life, and they're like, I don't know what to do now. And I don't know. Anthony Edwards being unbothered was nice. Like him showing up in a spot he'd never been in, that was nice.
Yeah, they were the team that you punch them and they fold. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like, yeah, they were playing from ahead the whole game. Edwards looks like the best player on the court. Yeah, it was like, oh, Memphis, all these flaws, and the inexperience of Minnesota was not a big deal. Like, yeah, that was sketch. And now I'm like, and Golden State now suddenly looks awesome. Jordan Poole is like this legit star, and it's I don't know. I'm reevaluating this quickly, and like you said, Andy, a good price. Maybe I'm going to get Memphis like plus 140 with home court against Golden State, and like, do I stick to my priors? 3 days ago, I was like, oh, that's a multi 5-figure bet. Now I'm like, pass. not interested. It's Suns It's going to be Suns Warriors. Is there?
It sounds like maybe
let's peel the layers a little bit.
Betting the NBA, Drew.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's also a game of runs.
It's a game of runs. Yeah, absolutely. It is very much a game of runs. Let's peel the layers on this 2-7 between Memphis and Minnesota a little bit. I thought it was interesting that the market basically didn't blink on that performance, and I didn't get it, honestly. I thought that they, like, similar to your kind of sentiment, I felt like, oh, this is repeatable. This may take another one of these before they really start to make adjustments, because when it comes to the inexperience mattering, right? Like when I think of that for these two teams, it's like the fact that the coach hasn't like had the rigors of how to try the different combinations to solve the puzzle yet. And, you need, honestly, like Minnesota doesn't need to do anything in the adjustment department, and Memphis needs to do some big things. And Jenkins doesn't have the experience where you have confidence that he's going to make a big swing or a big change between game 1 and game 2, even though they have to. And I mean, I look at a guy like Steven Adams and the way he played in that matchup, and I'm like, you can't start him. Like, you can't, like, make that adjustment now. You'll get a better performance out of Jaren Jackson Jr. presumably, if he's not in foul trouble. You'll get a better performance out of Ja. You'll if you shorten your rotation a little bit, you'll be in better shape. But I think it's going to take them being in dire straits before they do something that aggressive from an adjustment standpoint. And I think they need to. So I do think Wolves plus the points in game 2 makes sense. But I also will not hesitate to get involved with Minnesota. I mean, get involved with Memphis if the price is right to come back from that series if they're down 0-2, for instance, or even if it's 1-1 and the second, the win is massively unimpressive in game 2. I think still their right combination is there to really make the Wolves look bad. Still, Anthony Edwards is maybe the one X factor, because if he's the best player on the court, then Team Wolves are probably going into the next round. What are you seeing from Edwards in particular that you think is, 50-50 this is repeatable, that he plays this well the whole series, or am I off there?
No, I'm impressed by the physical skills. I don't think we're ever in debate, but it's like his mentality. Maybe he's what the Wolves needed, because I still don't trust Elo or Cat. Like, these guys are, soft, I guess, to say. But yeah, he just seems like he's not scared of this moment at all. He was so good against the Clips. He was so good in game 1. And maybe that's the steadying influence. And it's weird because he's so young, and but maybe he's just this natural. Remember then there was, he's so detached, he doesn't care or whatever, but maybe part of that's good. He's like not feeling the pressure of my whole life revolves around this game. He's like, hey, I'm good at basketball. We're good. And we'll win. And the other, maybe Memphis was like a good matchup for them because, like, are you as the young team, you're coming into the playoffs? Oh, we're up against the Splash Brothers or Chris Paul or Luka or any, Kawhi, whatever, any superstar. It's like, are you scared of Memphis? I mean, obviously they're a really good team, but I don't know if I'm, this what success, what's their pedigree there? It's like, hey, as far as 2 seeds we're going to get, we're not in awe of this team. They're not loaded with, first ballot Hall of Famers. They're, maybe this is just like a mental matchup that's so good for a Timberwolves team that I question their mental makeup.
Is there anything to the house money shit? The motivation of just the fact that there's no pressure on a young team. Like, hey, nobody we're not expected to win this series. We're not expected to maybe win a single road game here. We've never been here. Most of you guys, whatever, just go do it. And I think you see that sometimes with these teams. It's maybe this is the opposite. You get a 2 seed, you're the best team in the conference outside of the damn Suns, and you're expected. You have all these expectations on you, and like you said, they don't have experience. They don't have a ton of guys who've done this. So especially at the top end of the star level for them. I don't know. It's like 2 of the same teams, really. Just one is horrible at defense.
This series in particular, that might be a big thing because they're both inexperienced and all that. But the Wolves are not expected to win. If they get beaten in 5 or 6 games, nobody cares. Memphis is supposed to win. They're the 2 seed. This is if you don't lose anybody but Phoenix, you should win, or your fans expect you to be really live or win the series. And so this is maybe being the 2 just is a mental disadvantage as opposed to just playing free and easy as the 7. But I mean, we'll see. Obviously Memphis is still likely to win the series. They're the better team. You don't want to spaz out because of one game. But I just, red flags aplenty for me on this Memphis team. I don't know if I don't think they're going to be Golden State now.
Do you think Jenkins has the goods to make the adjustments needed to get this?
You saw his post-game comment, I just wanted to play all my good guys, no minutes, and go.
It made me pull my hair out. I was like,
see what works. I'm like, obviously, so he's Budenholzer's boy, and Bud was doing this for how many 7 years?
Still doing it. Yeah, the only reason he didn't last year was because they stripped the roster down and he just didn't have enough parts, right? They took the power away from him.
It was also you lose, you get fired, and it was how about I have the best player in the NBA. How about I use him 45 minutes? Oh, okay, we won. What a shocker! And I saw some people ragging on him because Giannis played 35 minutes. It's it's the Bulls. You can just you can load manage against Chicago. I mean, it doesn't matter. So I'm hoping that Bud is just not taking that series seriously. And I don't know what Jenkins is thinking. Is he an idiot? Did he not learn anything? Maybe, and he knows more than I do. He has a better read on the series. Maybe he's not that worried about the Wolves. He's just we'll beat these guys when we want to. And, maybe they took him lightly. Maybe he's just not worried about one game. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not him. It was a little disconcerting, though. He's been so good, and he was pretty sharp in their playing with Golden State last year. Some of their late game decisions and fouling was really sharp. It's oh yeah, this guy seems to have the goods. And then whatever that game was, whatever that game 1 was, I don't know. We'll see.
That was my favorite part about game 1, Memphis, Minnesota, was it turning into I don't know, UNC Greensboro playing a game in December where the team is down by 12 with a minute and they're just hacking and people are dying over live unders. What are we doing? This is the association. We can't have this in our league. And I mean, there was a lot of points late in that game for no reason.
It looked like that.
The thing that drives, and again, I get it. We see it more in college. I get how fouling works, but it doesn't work if you go set up a half-court offense for a little bit and then try to drive for a layup. Shoot some fucking threes. If you're gonna fall on one end with a minute, shoot some. They're going for layups. All right, well, you are now at the same level. You were down by 10, and now you're down by 10 again.
Especially
except
because
with less time.
You know who gives up a lot of 3-point attempts and good looks at that? Minnesota. Like that's literally their biggest problem, and they didn't even try to press that button, which was surprising. So there are buttons to be able to be pressed to get them back in the series. Let's assume, for the sake of hypothetical, that Memphis loses game 2. And they head to Minnesota 0-2. What kind of series price would you expect the market to reflect, and would you bet into Memphis again at this point?
Where would the series price be?
Maybe like plus
160, plus 140,
plus 1 something.
No, I think you're short.
I don't know. The market didn't seem to give a shit about game 1. I suppose heading back to Minnesota, 180.
I'll take I'd say it's going to be over 200.
Wow. 0-2. Wow.
What sort of broom should I buy for Saturday's game?
So a 7-point home favorite, you're expecting them to be about a pick 'em or maybe a small favorite on the road, right?
If they're down 0-2, they'll be favored in game 3. If it's 1-1, they'll be a slight dog. I mean, they get everybody, of course, knows about the home teams down 0-2, but the road team, if in the very rare instances the high seed loses the first 2, they also overperform in game 3 because you have the ostensibly better team in a must win. Like they also kick ass in game 3. They don't have the home crowd at their. Usually, it's just like the bad team has the home crowd at their back for a half, and they give it their all, and then whatever, they might fade away. But like when the better team has to win, they show. The home team down, or the high seed down 0-2 shows, so they would definitely get a premium in that game. But yeah, okay, let's just say pick. I think that's fine.
Okay, so more inclined to bet the Grizzlies down 0-2 on the plus 180 price range, or wait until they're down 1-3 and then get them at an even better number?
I mean, why do we want to bet Memphis?
I'm going to bet them in game 3.
Consecutive games as 7-point favorites. I mean, I get that. Not over.
I don't mind paying to be wrong that Jenkins ultimately figures this series out. He's a good coach. He's got a lot to work with. And I guess, I mean, who, in your opinion, who ought to be the Memphis closing 5?
I have an opinion on this.
Go ahead. Share.
Andy's looking at their depth chart right now.
Yeah, I have to go look at their depth chart. I just wanted to do a glue lady joke.
Oh.
I don't know. She's not coming back. She's probably 86 from that joint.
So we all agree that like they shouldn't be going big, just so a small ball 5, but then you get eaten alive by Cat and
I thought Anderson did pretty good on Cat. You could have him be your biggest player out there. I don't think you're in. I don't know. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be, effectively your 5 in that lineup. Jackson. How about Jackson, Anderson, Bane, Ja, and Melton? Like, do you need Brooks on the floor for the closing 5?
When you read off that roster, I'm like, that's the 2 seed that I'm just like going.
I think they can go into the Oakland area and surprise some people.
That's not an awesome team. I mean, I get the matchups force you to do things, but I think like just the talent level of that lineup is not great. Is it notably better than Minnesota? Like, I don't know. I kind of like the Wolves side. You're convincing me more and more that like Minnesota is going to go toe to toe with these guys.
Okay, interesting.
Well, and that's if Cat is like
Andy's
better.
Ahead of them on
there was a moment there where my daughter during the Clippers game, she's like, I don't think Cat's my favorite player anymore. I'm like, what? she just gave up on the guy. I'm like, yeah, this
that was
is
the
bad.
kind of performance that does that to you, though.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I can't argue with you here. You need to pick it because she wanted a jersey, and she had it all picked out. And like, I start partway through this. Why is he going to the bench again? He has like 4 fouls, honey. I don't know what to tell you here. She's like, I don't know if I want that jersey anymore. Maybe I need to pick a new favorite player. Like Anthony you really Edwards. Do. This is horrible. So I think it is Anthony Edwards now. But like he what are you? 25 and 10, more than that. He was fine. Like if he's fine and Anthony Edwards is fine, maybe Spoon's right. Like this isn't a 2-7 anymore. This is 3-6, borderline 4-5. I'll say, maybe, you know what? And the Timberwolves are the 4. I'll say it.
When Drew was reading, I'm like, I agree that sure that lineup makes sense, but I mean, my God, these players are not good. It's just like, maybe it's what you need for Minnesota, but that's you got to use lesser players to not get exploited, which is what the playoffs is all about, of course. I mean, the better matchup is oftentimes more important than the better talent. But yeah, it's just scary. I mean,
this was a bad matchup for them.
This podcast isn't going to do well in Tennessee.
Well, you know, I ultimately, I'm probably going to be willing to pay the price for Memphis to come back, but I think taking the 7 points for game 2 makes a ton of sense with with Timberwolves and the way they're playing right now. And
I'm more interested in taking Memphis in game 3. Either way, like Memphis pick I like to take some of these high seeds. Usually I'm looking to take them. I'd much rather take like pick on the road than lay 7 with some of these teams if you like the high seed.
Yeah, I agree with that. So
especially like I've said a lot of nice Timberwolves things. You're not going to the Garden. This is, I mean, it's not, you're not rallying.
Grindhouse has a nickname, Andy. I mean, it's the Grindhouse.
I mean, the Target Center is not imposing to anyone. People are awful polite. Like, they don't do the FU ref. They're like, I think they're chanting, come on, ref. Are you kidding? You're nuts. Rats. That was a bad call. Like, they're too nice.
I mean, Anthony Edwards is basically flying way under the radar as far as a breakout goes. I don't even know that there's many casual NBA fans who could tell you.
Minnesota's on. We get to watch that. I mean, the national casual fan sees like one Timberwolves game a year because we have to have breathless coverage of the Lakers. The Lakers are on TV 50 times a year, and the Timberwolves are on. If they're playing the Lakers, they might get a game, or that's about it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I mean, even the play-in game was. They put it on West Coast time, even though it was in Minnesota. That's like right. The game was 8:30 local because it was the Clippers. Nobody even cares about the Clippers. They still.
We've heard enough of you defending your actions and not going to that game.
Yeah, that's fair.
We know you're trying to rewrite history.
I got tickets. I got tickets for Game 4.
Oh, you did?
Saturday I'm going. You
cool.
will have to sting me because I am not paying $500 a ticket to go sit where I sat last time. It's not. It's the same basketball game. It's dumb. I guess it's the playoffs. But yeah, the ticket prices go up for the playoffs. Spoiler.
Apparently.
If you wear a BetSperts shirt and glue yourself to the court, do you think that you can get them to comp your way in?
Business expense.
Honestly, Reed would probably go for that. I'd miss the game. Like, send my kid out after the game. I'll be in the parking lot.
Glue yourself to the floor. All right. Well, let's talk about the other 2-7 series. And I'm interested. I didn't realize you were interested. You had financial stakes in the Nets. And I've heard a lot of different opinions of how people's perception of the series changed after game 1. As a Celtics backer, I was literally
in which direction?
Both directions. Like I've heard real extreme takes on both sides. And I mean, honestly, as a Celtics backer, that was like sweet relief. Like, holy crap. If you lose that game, after you've put that many minutes on Tatum and Brown already, and Robert Williams isn't coming back to save the day in this series, and now you've conceded home court to these guys, and Irving is shooting the way he's shooting, creating offense the way he's creating offense. Like, all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, this series flipped on a dime. They hold on, and my general feeling was, all right, okay, whew. Like, you took their best shot and you survived. Like, let's now if you can hold court in game 2 and split in Brooklyn, you may be able to get this done in 5. Were there any surprises to you about the way that game played? And anything that you took away, either positive or negative, for your Nets position?
That the Nets played the first half like they were drunk and were tied, and you seem to think that this was like their A+ performance. What game were we watching? The same game?
Well, the fourth quarter, they came out and they absolutely, they needed to close a 15-point gap, and they did it. And they made it look easy.
To me, okay, I think the Nets have a gear that the Celtics do not. I think Tatum's great, and that's fine. But like Durant is better, Kyrie is better. Like they just have their top end talent. When the NBA playoffs, like having the best player on the court is so important because they never ever run in the fourth quarter. Every playoff game, no matter how Showtime Lakers to the 7-second Suns, like nobody runs at the end of the game. You need a closer. And it's the most casual sounding thing in the world. But like you need the guy who gets buckets. And casuals overrate that so much, but it matters in which I guess the games they watch is like the playoffs, last 5 minutes of playoff game. And I have Durant and you have Jason Tatum, which is like the Celtics for years. That's been the go-to guy, other than like Marcus Smart will occasionally chuck one up for no real reason. And sometimes Jaylen Brown will get lucky and get a shot off, like the ball will land in his hands and he'll shoot, which is always scary because he's usually open and hits them. But they always seem to shy away. And you get Tatum, step back jumpers and all this stuff. Like, yeah, give me Brooklyn. I just feel like they have this gear in the fourth quarter. And we saw how quickly they made up the deficit yesterday. It felt like they were not worried. Like, okay, well, we'll maintain contact with them for 3 quarters and we'll turn it on and win. And
is there ceiling?
They're up 3 with 40 seconds left. They should have won the game.
Yeah, I mean, and to both of you guys, is the Nets ceiling, if everything works, is it ceiling higher than last year's Nets team?
No,
or at least close to it. Like, can it be as good as that team? Because like legitimately, you talk about Durant, and that's all I can think about is if his shoe size was one size smaller, you have a different NBA champion than you actually had. Because I mean, that 3 he drilled that wasn't a 3. I mean, that was game. Yeah. And his foot was just too damn big. He is fucking clutch. I've said this for years a casual. He's my favorite.
I thought last year's Nets team had a defensive level that they could reach that would not have blown a 107-102 lead against the Celtics. They had a 5-point lead with under 6 to play. And the Celtics came and got them.
What's a fair price to bet the Nets at? I'm just, maybe if I were shopping right now.
Yeah. You can get a good number on them right now. I think you're out to -230 for the Celtics. So you can get almost 2-1 on the Nets. If you were betting them for the series. But I get your point about Tatum versus KD as far as being a closer, and the fact that KD's done it for years and has championships and, was clearly a unanimous agreement was the best player in the NBA, took the baton from LeBron that year that they, swept him out of the playoffs. He's still in that played a number of games part where you look at every other aging curve out there and you're like, it's looming. Like, he's definitely not getting better. He's old. And he's coming off some pretty significant injuries at this point. He couldn't play a full season this year. He doesn't have a ton of help. He's going to have to play 45 minutes a game. And, if I look just flat out like any kind of a player level model, Tatum and Durant, they look pretty damn close if you're in the blind. Like, there's not a huge margin between those two guys in terms of, what a fair rating on them is as a player at this point. Is it simply the killer instinct and the fact that Durant can get his shot from wherever he wants it on the court because he's such a mismatch size-wise that would give you the kind of the confidence that he is the closer in the series and not Tatum?
Yes. I mean, for me, there's a difference. If you're just like, we're going to have an 82-game season against the league at large.
Not again.
Full season against the entire field. Like, I can understand that, like, there's not a big edge there. I mean, you're fine with, I think either one of them is, I can understand. Tatum might be better or rate the same. But you're telling me it's the playoffs and you really need to put a premium on, like you said, Durant gets his shot every time. And the thing about the playoffs is, like, the teams that excel, like you see with the Suns and all this, when you're with the whole league strategy is the threes and the dunks kind of aspect, having guys that hit mid-range shots anyway is really good, because if you spent all season, we're shooting threes, we're shooting dunks. Now it's the playoffs, the teams buckle down, force you into a mid-range, and you haven't taken those all year. You don't have like mid-range snipers. I think you see these late game offenses like perform worse than you would otherwise. Kevin Durant's going to shoot a 15-footer. Okay. Like, fine.
Yeah.
The one interesting thing though was like that Celtics end game. I was so impressed because they had 2 opportunities to do dumbass Celtic shit. Like, I thought Marcus Smart was going to pull for the 3. That's his thing. Yeah. And he doesn't. He hits the pass. And Tatum doesn't like cut off the drive at the free throw line and then do the Mamba fadeaway. Like, that's what he's always done. And he just cuts to the basket, puts the spin moves, and shoots a layup. Like, whoa, this is not Celtics basketball. I mean, the pieces are there. I think the Celtics are a really good team, no question. And if they play, they were always really great at like the Brad Stevens ATOs and everything. Were always elite, but they're just like in running play was stupid. And to just settle, the offense was like Jason Tatum, bail us out.
Yeah, go get him. Yeah,
he may have the skills, but the shot selection was dog shit. And then like, yeah, the possession.
And do that 16 times.
After the Kyrie 3, they just like went down and shot a layup. They didn't try to get it back with the 3-pointer. They just like went right to the basket. The Nets gave them this easy shot. That was probably the shot that lost the game for Brooklyn. If it's the possession before. If you stop them there or make them run clock, make them go into where they have to foul you. Yeah. Totally different game. You just give them 2 points, and it's like, well, now you have to hit. And can we talk about Steve Nash? I don't feel like anybody ever rags on this guy. Like, why is he Brooklyn's coach? How did this? They had Kenny Atkinson, who's good, and like they didn't want to play for a real coach. They wanted a buddy in there with the whole Kyrie and and then they had Harden. Like, they just wanted a guy who wasn't going to challenge them. And it's like, why is this guy their coach? He's bad. I don't know what he does. I don't like anything about Brooklyn's late game. They do the same thing as Boston does. It's okay, Bayless, Kyrie, and KD alternate. You guys hit the big shots, and they're so good it works. But they don't run any like offense. Their defense was just giving up layups. I just like,
yeah. Defensively, their ceiling is
on all these other coaches all the time, and I just feel like Nash has gotten a free pass for 2 years now. They should have beaten Milwaukee last year. They shouldn't. I don't know. I think he's really bad. And
people spend all their energy shitting on Glenn, and they kind of forget about some of the other bad coaches. I mean, that's the thing. Or even Budenholzer caught a lot of hell as like a bad regular season coach who, I mean, it obviously worked out.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't hear about that. I have to look up.
Steve Kerr never really gets the pointy end of the stick either.
Kerr's horrible.
Nobody really gives him the business.
You win a bunch of titles. And the same thing is like, well, look at their offensive firepower. You don't really have to coach that much when it's give Steph the ball and he just bails you out of everything. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like some of these, everybody piles on Glenn. I agree, because he blows series, but the other guys don't. Like, currently still, other than blowing a 3-1 lead in the final. If you guys hadn't heard, Golden State blew a 3-1 lead to Cleveland in the 2016 finals.
True.
It always comes back to Kyrie. I rewatched part of that, like, to get ready for the playoffs. The Kyrie shot still gets me. It still gets me.
That was a good one.
He hit the same shot against
the Celtics. He hit the same shot yesterday. Yeah, he did. I was like, oh, Jesus, how did he hit that?
And when it's the most interesting thing any of you guys said, both of you said, was like the fact that, the evolution of the NBA, dunk it, lay it up, or shoot a 3. But then, you work around that as a defensive, your strategy becomes defend what everybody's doing, so you can have some of these mid-range. And like, if it's not something you have anyone who's good at it, it becomes almost a weird Achilles heel. And it just stinks that Melo is stuck somewhere that's not in the playoffs. It's like, that's my mid-range guy. That's my guy.
No. The answer was not Melo, because as a Blazer,
never.
Melo actually
ran them out of the playoffs.
Out of the. If Melo doesn't play a minute in that series, Portland beats Denver, and like he actively lost a series in the year 2021. I don't know how Stotts didn't see it, which is probably why he's watching the playoffs too.
I agree with that.
The
Okay,
Olympic
so
medals probably.
Let me go back to the Celtics for one more thought. I have not gotten heavily involved in any Eastern Conference futures, mostly because I just look at the futures market, and it just the prices are like, they are disconnected from reality of the way these series are going to be priced, in my opinion. And so there's more money to be made in taking other approaches and betting series by series. You're going to have more information. You're less, more flexibility, all that, blah, blah, blah. The Celtics scare me from a future standpoint, and throwing cold water on them, because they did not play by the, we're going to get our guys rest and we're going to load manage a little bit. Like, they played these guys hard all season long. And if there was kind of one through line that was pretty obvious all season, it was fatigue mattered a ton. And there were signs in that fourth quarter with Celtics trying to get 40 minutes out of Jason Tatum and Brown that were like, these guys look a little gassed. Al Horford's played a lot of basketball for an old man. Like, there were some pretty, distressing observations of just sort of the player fitness level that I would worry about if this series goes long, because next series against Bucks, presumably, you're not going to win that one in short order either if you're the Celtics. So I guess, do you get the general sense that there is a rest angle that favors Brooklyn at all? Kyrie only played half the games. Durant got a big chunk of the season off. Presumably these guys are more capable of going 40 plus a game for the full 7.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we saw it was sort of like we used to see the load management, where it's like we'd load manage, but you'd still try to like get a high seed. And I feel like it's what Milwaukee last year just didn't care. They're like, okay, we'll play game 7 at Brooklyn. We'll play game 5 in Phoenix, and we'll just win these games. Like, busting your ass all season for that extra home game versus resting all season and being 100% for the playoffs. I just feel like, you've seen it time and again that the fresh legs in the playoffs can just overcome the one extra home game.
Well, just on average, like, I know we talked about what game 3 could be with if the Mavs were down, or if the Grids were down 0-2, like, things change based on situations. But on average, what's the money line percentage swing from home and away, like the cumulative, like the
7%, right?
Yeah. So like, is busting your ass all year worth 7% in one game over a 7-game series?
It might not be. And I think that's why I'm saying I feel like
it doesn't sound like
some
much
of these teams at the high end, especially the Bucks had the best record in the NBA in like 2 years in a row, and it didn't matter. And maybe they realized, like, oh, maybe it's more important to be full power, and we'll just take off lots of regular season games. They wanted us the 3 seed last year. They won game 7 in Brooklyn. Like, okay. They won game 5 in Phoenix when they won the big games on the road that they had to. So I'm just, maybe as an organizational philosophy, maybe it's not, okay, we're not going to run our guys into the ground. I know it's a little bit of trolling, but is there some sort of like rich man's last season's Knicks with the Celtics, where like they look great because they are the regular season tryhards, but then they get to the playoffs and like, here's the team with the real thoroughbreds that didn't give a shit, and like, oh, these guys have that gear. The Hawks.
There's a fair analog for what you're saying, but I don't think it's that.
That's not fair to put them down there with
the Elon Musk Knicks. I'm not comparing them. I mean, the Celtics are legitimately good, but I also feel like they really did try harder than certainly Milwaukee or Philly. Miami was kind of a try-hard team, but
you're saying from like a perception standpoint, maybe even within the market, like the fact that they were the try-hard, it makes them seem like they're at the echelon.
The analog is the Celtics are last year's Suns taking on the Lakers. Like, that's pretty similar.
I agree.
Obviously, I think the Nets are better than last year's Lakers. I think the Celtics aren't quite as good as the Suns were, and we learned that. But that's closer to what I. But yeah, I mean, it's.
But I mean, now you're also talking about a series the Lakers led 2-1.
Yeah.
And Anthony Davis goes down in game 4. It's like, I mean, is that the hat you're hanging on the Celtics? I mean,
Yeah.
The Lakers were definitely. I mean, what was the series? The Lakers were favored entering that series, and after Game 3, they were bigger favorites.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Okay. Also, I know it's a playoff show, so this is the only chance we're going to laugh at the Lakers because they're not involved. They won the championship 2 years ago. Last year, they're $1.40 series favorite without home court against the Suns, who are awesome.
Yeah.
Why did they blow it up? Like, why did they? We've got to bring in Russell. We've got to make moves. Run it back. You're good. You're set. Like, what were they doing?
I mean, the moves that they've made, if you put them all on paper and list them, it's literally like it's impossible to rank them from bad to worse. Like they're all so bad.
And as just like normal knowledgeable fans, like that doesn't make sense. That's a bad move. That's a bad move. They played their way from the championship into out of the top 10 in 2 years.
Yeah, and if you look around the NBA right now, it's a who's who of like solid role players and or good, rising stars that used to be Lakers.
I was going to say, even
there's a lot.
Casual Andy knows, like Alex Caruso was probably a decent thing to keep. I guess I don't know his contract status.
Taylor Horton, THT. He
was probably a free agent, but like, the Westbrook thing was puzzling. I do enjoy the montages of him like hitting the side of the backboard shit. Like that's just teasing.
They get longer. I was like, Scott Joplin's gonna have to rise from the grave when they set them to like the ragtime music. And I don't know why those montages are 10 times funnier when they're set to like that old timey, music for no real reason. But it always makes it bad. It's maybe because that's what basketball looked like in the Peach Bucket days.
Yeah, it was that was a great genre, and then the Ben Roethlisberger skipping passes. Bouncing.
Oh yeah,
those were incredible as well.
A guy wide open, like 7 yards down the field, and it lands at his feet. That was great.
Yeah, right at his feet. Okay, so all right. Well, you've sufficiently scared me out of getting any more involved in the Celtics. Although I still do think, we've talked a shit ton about Philly, Toronto as sort of it could go like this or it could go like this, and I feel like Celtics. The way I look at the series now, I feel like they kind of have to get it done in 5. I don't really want to see what this team looks like if they've played, the key players for 40 minutes a game for 5-6 games, and whether those guys can, still find the juice to perform in Game 7. If it comes down to that, like I'm not going to feel great. I think Udoka has been a breath of fresh air as a coach. Never would have guessed that they would have been able to upgrade and move on so quickly from the Brad Stevens era, but it's pretty obvious that this guy rocks. He came from Brooklyn too, right?
Yeah, he was an assistant coach with them last year.
They could elevate.
I'm always saying that people don't know about the assistant coaches. Like, is
that the point you're always?
That's your thing.
That's the point I'm always making in the chat. The best part was, and I'm joking because you brought that up, Spoon, and I sat there thinking about like what an assistant coach does for like 5 minutes before I finally just asked. I'm like, I don't know what they really do. Like, can someone explain that to me? And then for like 20 minutes, I looked up the Timberwolves assistant coaches to see if anyone had their DMs open on Twitter, so I could just actually ask them, like, hey, what do you do? Like, what's your day-to-day look like? I gave up pretty quick, but that was interesting. No, but real quick, question because I think Drew was on this, and I want to hear what Spoon thought pre-series in the Toronto series. Like, first off, Drew, has your mind changed at all about Glenn's ability to screw this up? Because, I mean, Philly looks really good. And then, I don't know, Spoon, like, what did you think of that series, pre-series? A lot of people were of the thought that, if it goes long, Toronto's live.
I still think that, but Scotty Barnes' health is now a huge X factor.
Sure.
Toronto is, to this day, very thin. They cannot sustain, these big time injuries are not going to help them ultimately. And Philly is getting an outsized effort from James Harden. If you believe that that's going to last for the entire 2 months of the playoffs, I have some oceanfront property in the desert to sell you. Similarly, Joel Embiid is in the same exact camp as the Celtics in terms of they wore him down this year. if he makes it through the balance of the season without something nagging that's, that it either impacts him at a series level or just a game by game level over some stretch, I won't be surprised. But it doesn't look like Toronto has the juice to make this a competitive series. What do you think, Spoon?
Well, yeah, same. I mean, obviously we see like the injury situation kind of changed everything. So I mean, I feel stupid. This is the problem with not. So I tend to prefer betting game to game in the playoffs over series prices. Like I said, Brooklyn, I would like the series price over just specifically like game one, because I do feel like Brooklyn's going to win the series. I just don't know which games they're going to show up. And that was more just like a price thing. Okay, they're plus 125 and they're out equal team. So give me that. I'm not necessarily like playing game to game here. I don't know. Philly was like game one is so good, and I don't know what's going to happen in the series. But now, of course, it feels terrible because, like, oh man, I wish I had a grip of minus 180 because Toronto is going to suffer like catastrophic injury losses and just look totally non-competitive.
Yeah, the defense has been bad. Siakam has been a complete no-show in terms of any kind of aggressiveness on offense. Yeah, it's not looking good. But
when you say a grip, you mean a large amount of?
Like both hands could hold a pile of tickets.
There's like I've never heard somebody
that's the 7 series winner.
There's like an old farmer back home that would say that, a whole grip of something. And it's you and that you and that guy are the only people I've ever heard say that.
It's my Alaskan roots coming out. I'm from the sticks, just like anybody else.
Yeah. So at what point do the Sixers have to win a game 7 and lose? Which round?
Against Miami.
Miami.
This was one where like I everybody, because the Glenn Nurse and the COVID situation. It's just such the talent disparity is so big that this
big. It's big.
It reminds me at the NCAA tournament where it was like, we really want to fade Providence, they suck, and they end up as 2-point favorites against the Jackrabbits. And it's the same, like, oh yeah, we want to fade Philly. I don't trust Glenn Rivers. I don't trust all these guys. Okay, I don't trust Harden. Like, of course, but I mean, Toronto's not that good. Fade them against Miami. There you go. And especially when they split the first 2 games in Miami, and it's going to be like, okay, now it's 2 games apiece, and you have Spoelstra against Rivers, or if they're up 3-2 in that series, like that's where you're going to see the classic Sixers choke job, not against some weak.
No. Harden playing in Miami in a game 5 and 7. Oh no. He'll be just fine. James Harden, we're talking. He'll be fine. Yeah.
I mean, Philly destroyed Washington last year. It's not like Doc Rivers and these guys can't beat a bad team. They have no problem beating the 8 seed or Toronto. But once they're up there against a powerhouse like the Hawks, then they don't get it done.
When you have the co-MVP effectively in Embiid, and you're up against a team whose best offensive player is Pascal Siakam, you should be more than a minus 180 favor, whatever they closed.
Yeah, that was. I mean, the game plan, Drew. I was. Because of all the narratives around that and not being able to bring the whole squad up to Canada, and maybe Glenn failing late in the series, there was a little bit of an inkling of, how do I bet Toronto if I really want to? Sure. And I think eventually people said, well, if you do, maybe just bet them before game 3. They probably get beat. Get beat on the road, and then maybe just take the series price. But with the injuries and just seeing how bad they are, I don't want to do that anymore. That doesn't sound like a fun time to me.
No,
I can tweet that that was the strategy. Wait for them to lose the game 1 that they were going to lose, and then. But that was where I kind of felt, oh, what a sigh of relief. They got the injuries, and now it's like I don't have to do anything.
I wash my hands.
You can ignore a series. It's okay to just be like.
Speaking of Bucks goals.
Speaking of ignoring a series.
Okay. Nets. Let's assume you're right, and the Nets get through. You have an appetite to bet them against the Bucks as well, or is that where the party ends?
Not at all. Milwaukee is like that's. I'm riding Milwaukee into the mists of Avalon here. I think they'll beat Brooklyn again. I think they'll beat Miami, and they'll be. We're getting Bucks Suns again, probably.
Yeah, feels like that. No worries about Budenholzer regressing a little?
I am like the Mike Budenholzer fan club Twitter account. Like I was going to war last year for the guy.
Yeah.
You yelled at people.
Look at his record. Like the guy, I don't know what people's problem is. He blew the Raptor series. Yes. They should have won that series if Giannis plays 3 extra minutes per game. All 4 losses were so close.
Yes.
That's right. They got blown out in game 4. Game 3 was like a double overtime game where he played like 38 minutes in a double overtime game.
That would have put him up 3-0? I can't remember. Yeah,
yes.
Right.
They won the first 2 at home. Game 3 was like a double overtime. Game 5 and 6, they had 15-point leads in the second half of both games and blew them. Yeah. Like, that was a bad performance from him, and he should wear that one. But otherwise, I was like, why is everyone dunking on him? I don't know what. He wins a ton of games, and there were all these, they need to fire him and get Rick Carlisle. Rick Carlisle hasn't had a 50-win season since the title run. He hasn't won a playoff series. Why are we all slurping this guy?
Did Rick Carlisle get fired from the Indiana Pacers already? I think he might have, or at least they're talking about moving him into the front office, putting him in
pushing him out. Maybe they can. It was just. I don't know. I'm a Budenholzer stan, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Like I just like the guy, and I don't think he's so bad. I mean, the guy went to his rotations are dicey, but we saw last year, like, we need to win. I'll just play the best player in the game for a ton of time. So no, I would not say I'm worried, and I don't think he's a downgrade to. Maybe that was the other thing too. Look at his playoff path last year. He got to play Nash and then McMillan. Like these guys suck, and then Monty's fine. But it was like, he was not at a coaching disadvantage against any relevant team. And kind of same thing this year. Obviously, Udoka is in his first season, so we don't know. Or Nash. And then, Spoelstra, okay, he's better. But
okay, so if something stops the Bucks, it's what? They just run up against a nuclear Kyrie. Spoelstra does the best coaching job of his life.
They probably should have lost to the Nets last year, so I don't think it's.
Yeah, what's that series price? Bucks Nets.
Okay, Bucks at
minus 160-ish.
Yeah, Bucks have home court. They're going to be. Celtics were 4.5 yesterday. You have to figure you're looking at the same thing. I think the Bucks would be valued a little higher in Boston. So 150, 160 seems pretty.
Especially
reasonable.
You're probably coming off a Bucks sweep, and you're coming off a 7-game win by the Nets.
That's fair too. The rest is fair.
What about everybody's boy Ben Simmons? Is there a more like
he did dunk the other day? I saw a video of it.
I don't know if he's going to play and all that, but like, what is with everybody? Like, ha, Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is good. What is wrong with you? If Ben Simmons was in for the Celtics series at full health, they kill him. Like, he's really good, and for some reason, there's just like the memeing on this guy is incredible. He passed. He passed.
You remember that time he could have dunked though?
Yeah. I don't know why.
That'll sit with me forever, dude. That was like when a video game is broken and you try to hit the dunk button. Why did I pass it? Like that was weird.
Durant, Irving, Seth Curry. Like
that's the problem. You just named 3. If you put Ben Simmons on the floor with those guys, you can't live with Bruce Brown on the floor. You got to have somebody else. You need
this is like it's just a like for like upgrade. I don't know. I just feel like everybody treats this guy like he sucks. He's great, and if he comes back, I don't know.
He's like a young Mike Budenholzer.
If they were full strength with Joe Harris and Ben Simmons available, I love that closing 5. Like that's an absolutely special closing 5 that I'm all of a sudden very terrified of betting anyone else in the East. But without Harris and with Simmons being reintroduced at the playoff stage, it's tough for me to really think that he's going to have much of an impact on this series or these playoffs.
I was just I don't think he's going to have this huge impact. I saw like, he's potential to play, and all the people are like, is that even an upgrade or who cares? It matters.
Oh no. And honestly, it was a surprise. So you should be repricing. I don't think that the market expected he was going to be available for this series when we saw some of the opening prices, and so the fact that he is now potentially going to come back at some point when they're in Brooklyn, I think. You got to be prepared to factor that in. Okay.
I live bet Utah, by the way. So
good job by you. Great call.
We're also a Utah team. They were down by a bunch to start the game. I thought that was dumb. I've made 4 NBA bets since we've talked.
Well, we talked a lot about the Eastern Conference. We haven't really spilled much on the Heat, but they're not super fun to talk about. And I think
Not yet.
ultimately Heat Bucks would make for a compelling Eastern Conference Finals. Heat Celtics would be interesting. Very interested to see if Udoka could solve the zone defense question mark, which has been beguiling the Celtics for years, apparently. But the Western Conference, you mentioned you had a little bit of an appetite to fade the Dubs. Steph Curry looked out of form big time in game one. Did not matter because Jordan Poole was nuclear. You're now thinking Suns Dubs is probably where we're headed in the West, and that's going to be a competitive series, or Suns are the right side?
We'll have to see the price. So, yeah, I've been lower on Golden State pretty much from the jump, and I'm glad that there wasn't some way to like sell Warriors stock during the season because they've got this gift wrap. Like Denver is a non-competitive series for them.
Yeah,
the Grizzlies. I 3 days ago I was the Grizzlies maxi, and now I'm scared. I do feel like they'll probably win that series now.
We'll revisit that. Well, seriously, because
so early in the season, though, I remember we were on the NBA chat bantering around like, what would a Warriors Suns series price be? And this is when like the books had the Warriors as the Western Conference favorite for reasons unknown. I was like, oh, that's Warriors slight favorite. I mean, even without home court, I mean, I'll take the Suns anything less than $1.50 for like all the money. So we have to see the price. I think the market. I'll probably be on Phoenix. I still think the market will overrate Golden State, especially if they curb stomp Denver and a 6-gamer against Memphis or sweep the Timberwolves, whatever happens there. Like, yeah, everyone. It's just like when they destroyed Portland in the Western Conference Finals, and everyone's like, "See, they don't even need Durant." Remember how good they went 30-3 without him when they played Toronto, and then it was like, no, they're playing a real team now, not Portland. They could be inflated especially if they get the Timberwolves. Like they're gonna get this god path to the Western Conference Finals, and then Phoenix will smoke them at least in the first game.
That would be a weird setup because if they end up going Denver, Minnesota into the finals, like that's a weird jump, and that price might be. Do prices get goofy based on that? Like, yeah, they beat the shit out of some teams. Like, hey, guess what? They've only played 8 games, but they're all against Denver and Minnesota.
Do you think realistically, though, anything outside of a dub sweep, the second round opponent, Phoenix goes 7 against the Jazz, anything other than that, you think the Dubs might be around a pick 'em?
No, not now. I mean, we were talking about this early in the season, not once the Suns win 64 games and Golden State is awful for like 2 months of the season. I mean, they had injuries, but I think that ship has sailed. I mean, I think it'll probably be more reasonably priced. But also, I mean, Golden State just has more cachet with the betting market in general. People like to bet on this team. They've delivered for so long. I'd imagine Phoenix. I still think Phoenix will be short on a potential series price there, but I don't think it's going to be goofy juice, like minus $1.20 or something outrageous.
Okay. Whew, man.
If it were $1.20, I would bet it.
I mean, that's what we were talking earlier in the year. Like, Phoenix small favorite even with home court, and I just was like, "Are you guys mental?" That's no. And unfortunately, they played another 50 games, and we realized that the Suns are at least half a step up from the Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, money's nice, but you were right. That's people can't take that from you.
I was right at 4 people's side, so that's.
I read every word in the NBA chat.
Noted NBA expert.
Noted NBA.
I did enjoy. What game was it that I watched? The play-in game, the Clips play-in game. Like I watched that entire game and did my second screen with the NBA chat. I don't know how you guys do this all year. Just like all I could do is just get mad at refs and be like, "Why is Paul George good all of a sudden?" And this is everything about this game.
It's all the material I want to say, but isn't nearly good enough for a real tweet. So you just vent to like the same 4 guys, and we're just like,
it's a great.
The worst part about a DM group is when you actually do put something in there and be like, "Fuck, that was a tweet. Like that should have got out. Like I wasted on these
guys." Response to your throwaway comment, like, "Ooh, but now if I tweet it, I look like like I'm workshopping these things." So.
Yeah. Did you get down any?
I for sure just said that. I've said like, "Fuck, I'm tweeting this as well." Like I don't care. I have,
Andy,
but I have
Andy,
to put it in there.
Did you get any smart DPOY? Andy?
No, I missed the boat on
Spoon?
that. A
Did you
bunch
get some
of people
smart
got
DPOY?
No, I don't bet the
You're not into the awards markets?
Awards futures market is like something I'm not involved in.
Oh,
I bet Jordan Poole
got like 10 or 20K down on Hero.
Yeah.
I didn't say it's not worthwhile. I just I don't know.
Yeah. I was surprised at the liquidity available for this.
I bet Jordan Poole finals MVP. That's the only one I have now.
That's a miserable bet.
I mean, he keeps this up.
There's only a couple of guys I think you realistically could bet where if they win the finals, the 100% share of the MVP vote goes to that player. Like Donovan Mitchell stands out. Tatum stands out. I don't know if there's maybe Pat Beverly. Yeah, he stands out surely. But yeah, there's only a couple of guys who like have enough equity that it makes sense to bet that. Speaking of Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz, they are finally playing well in what has been the ugliest basketball to watch so far in the young playoffs. This Mavs Jazz series is miserable, but we think Utah probably comes through. Any read on if we see Luka again? Any read on if we should see him again? Any read on what either of these teams ought to do moving forward if you had a say in the management?
I don't know how hurt he is, but I assume that down 2-0, they're going to break glass in case of emergency and roll him out there to give themselves any sort of shot in game 3. Do you think they're going to punt the series down 2-0 going to Utah? I mean, they probably should, but
yeah,
are they intimidated?
That's hard to sell to the fan base, though.
Yeah, it's not good for season outsiders. We know they're not going to win, but like as an organization, well, we give up. Like if the guy can play,
I don't know.
I mean, but has there been more across the league a more steady, pragmatic, drama-free front office? I mean, they get
it. They are looking into the future and making decisions with a clear mind. Surely,
I'm sure they'll make the right decisions.
But the fact that Kevin Durant lost a season of basketball in a very similar situation, I think cooler heads prevail and they pack it in. Nuggets, presumably, if they had pushed Jamal Murray back in, presumably if they had pushed Porter back in, could have at least competed in this series, and they are wasting a year of MVP Jokic to
you know what the spin zone
Mavericks should do that too.
Yeah, the spin zone and what you do, because like it is just such bad optics for your fan base to be like, yeah, fuck it, we're punting it. You say we're gonna do everything we can. You put them out there and let him try to warm up, or like some sort of farce. Like, oh man, he tried. He's out there and he just couldn't do it. He wanted to so bad, and maybe he even gets on Twitter and like apologizes. I tried. I'm too hurt.
Remember what the Jazz did last year with Mitchell in Game 1 against the Grizzlies when they were literally like, we're not allowing him to play. Like the medical staff was like not cleared. Like they just need to do a not.
Yeah, be like, it's a doctor's fault.
The doctor said it. The doctor said.
What are we gonna do? Our hands are tied here.
Our hands are tied. Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't have. I don't know. I'm sad.
I don't run a team.
I wanted to see Doncic win a playoff series this year, and I was even dreaming up scenarios where they won a game out of these first 4, and Doncic comes back to lead them back up from 1-3 down. But
we're speculating pretty heavily. Like he legitimately could already know he's playing in game 3. Like he could know, like, hey, I just need 1 or 2 extra days and I'm fine. We don't know at this injury how extreme this is at this point.
Yeah, I guess. For the purposes of discussion, Jazz take the Suns to how many games?
7.
7? You think that's a good matchup then? You think that's a well-matched series in terms of strengths and weaknesses?
Well, this is kind of the same Celtics Nets problem. Is like the Jazz continue to think that Donovan Mitchell is a superstar, and he's not. He's like, their late game offense runs around him doing whatever he wants, and he's like a top 50 player, not a top 10 player. And then you have the Suns, who never lose a game when it's close with 5 minutes to go. And you can see the same thing. You're going to see close games, and in the fourth quarter, the Jazz run their horrible offense, and the Suns are just like, okay, here's Devin Booker and here's Chris Paul and here's Ayton, like following up with dunks, and the Jazz don't win any close games, and the Suns win in 5.
Suns' final 6 minutes, you have to see it to believe it. That their closing 5 and the way they dominate, particularly when they lock down defense in the final 6 minutes, the final 4 minutes, it is awesome. It's awesome to see it. I love it. I think that team is.
I'm probably being a little, I guess I'm just trying to convey that I get killed on Utah every year in the playoffs. They always have these great numbers. They're always like, I'm always higher than the market on them. They were injured, but at full strength, this team is, like toe to toe with at least Golden State for like second in the West. And then they fail. It happens every single time. And, it's hard to, you want to bet or make decisions on like, they just don't have it kind of like handy, in the playoffs, they don't have it. And I feel like I can't not bet something because they've let me down before. And that's stupid. That's not a way to bet. And then you just fall for the same thing over and over again. It's like, maybe I'll just pass this time. So I feel like
how you've gotten wise.
But they'll lose. I guess they'll lose in 5 or 6. I mean, I kind of talked myself out of it, talking it through. Like the 5-minute Suns are just going to eat the Jazz alive.
Yeah, this Philly Toronto series
is
getting real physical. Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
Suns. I mean, is that a sweep or is that the whole? Does Monty Williams give him one because he's nice?
Which series are we talking about? The Pels.
The Pels.
Pels
give him one.
Pels win a game for sure.
Yeah.
I'm just trying. Like, if you're Monty, which one do you give him?
4.
Game
4, maybe. I'm just trying to decide which one to take a Pels money line. I'm like, I kind of saw it coming, guys.
I saw it coming. Well, let's
Game 3, the 0-2 spot, you're probably not going to get a ton of value. Then when the Suns win that one, then the Pels are like plus 5.5, in Game 4, and Monty's like, oh, my best friend over there. We'll just go ahead and whatever.
We'll give him one. We'll let him.
We got a couple guys. They're nursing some.
Monty let him have one in the regular season. I don't know if you remember that game, but it's kind of
the game
like
in Phoenix that the Pelicans crushed them.
Yeah, there was one where Monty gave him the old get yourself in the playoffs kind of a little push.
I had the Pels in that game. They're like plus 9 or something in Phoenix, and they won by 18. It was like easy win. The Suns are locked.
I do not know the name of their coach. I just know that.
Willie Green.
Willie Green.
That's Willie Green. So let's call it. Let's close the book on the playoffs. But I want to give you the opportunity. I want to give you the opportunity to help your franchise, the Portland Trail Blazers, get out of this mess that they have found themselves in. Like if they tap you on the shoulder and give you the Bob Voulgaris roles and responsibilities over in Portland, like what are you doing to turn that franchise around?
So I'm going to channel 1992 Blazer legend Danny Ainge. I'm going to call the Bucks. I'm going to give them a protected second rounder and I don't know, one of those guys that was starting late in the year for Giannis. And then when they don't take it, I'm going to go to the media and be like, I tried so hard to make the moves, and these guys, my hands are tied. No, I honestly.
Do you try to rebuild around Dame, or do you get what you can get from him and start from scratch?
Get him out. He's my favorite player in the NBA, and I have nothing negative to say, but we're done here. Like, we can close the book on that chapter.
Yeah.
Send him out. Rebuild.
Anything on the current roster worth building around, or do you literally have to start from scratch?
The arena.
And
keep it.
Simons, run it back.
The arena's nice, yeah.
Simons looks. I don't know how much you buy into like what he was doing, before they decided that he wasn't going to play anymore.
I thought he was good.
Yeah, I feel like it was. I don't want to. How much is that? Like 3/4 mark. Half the teams are not trying. He is, looks better than playing on a horrible team, kind of deal.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of Blazer fans like, okay, let's slide him into the Dame role. Dame will get us something good. Get high draft picks. We have $1 million. That's not a lot of money. $1 billion in cap space, and we'll of course no free agents will sign with Portland. We'll get Melo and Whiteside again or whatever. But no, there's no reason to run it back. Like the Lillard thing, I love the guy, but this chapter is closed, and see what happens.
Where do you want to see him land? Anywhere but the Lakers?
Yeah.
He's not going to they can get assets for him, right?
No Warriors and no Lakers, and otherwise it's fine. I wish him well.
Do you want to see him go to a contender, or do you want to see him go to a team that's going to give you a bunch of assets that can help you build the Blazers back quicker?
Ooh, good question. I'd probably rather you go to a contender. I feel like I'd be happier rooting for Dame to win a title than like whatever 12-year plan Portland's going to be embarking on. And the Blazers are so far from anything right now that, like, can I spend the next 2 years rooting for my favorite player to break through with a real championship opportunity? Or am I like, all right, we're going to the like 8th pick, or, you know, that protected first next year. Now, how are we going to jockey for position? Yeah, you know, that doesn't seem super exciting.
Do you keep your coach?
Oh,
I mean, maybe keep him for a year because you're in rebuild.
He didn't show much, but, you know, the team was actively not trying for so much of the year.
Makes it hard to evaluate
sometimes
him.
when these guys bring in, the first thing I like to see is Andy's favorite topic, the assistant coach. I'm like, okay, they hired Billups, fine. The first thing he does is hire Scott Brooks as his like right-hand man. I'm like, whoa, that's
red flag city.
Yeah. Whoa. Okay. Scott Brooks is coming in. Like, if you look around the league and you think I got to get that guy in here to, you know, to guide me, that's really scary. Like, that's just such a, I know.
He eventually figured out how to rotate Westbrook and Durant in a way that the OKC made it to the conference finals.
But
he's not very good though.
Scott,
I mean, when they brought in Steve Hetzel,
he was good at developing players. Like, Brooks had a knack for taking these talented guys and getting them to be good, but he couldn't coach a good team. Like, his strategy is horrific.
Dude, he was NBA Coach of the Year in 2010. What a joke of an award.
Well, that award is
unbelievable.
Ednisha Curry on that staff. Now I'm just looking at assistants. Okay,
interesting. Well, I hope for your sake that, I mean, Portland is a great NBA city. They deserve a runner.
They deserve like five NBA titles in 6 years. I just
is that too much to ask?
I mean, simple ask.
Yeah, no, I think realistically they're going to end up with a decent lottery pick this year. It's kind of a weak draft though.
I've been there, dude. I've been through this. Team wasn't good. Got some high picks. I mean, you can turn it around.
Still wasn't good. Get more high picks. Team still wasn't good. Get more high picks.
Next year's NBA draft looks really, really, really good. So presumably you want another season of tanking.
I think the Blazers will oblige. Well, I don't. Yeah, they'll run back Lillard, sign some mid-level free agent, win 42 games, and get bounced in the first round and go into the purgatory zone. That would be.
Yeah. You want Chet Holmgren? Keep him in the Pacific Northwest if they get a top 2 lottery pick?
No,
you're out on Chet.
I am. And not that I'm some college basketball, fanatic or expert, but like, I don't know. Was he really good at Gonzaga?
He's pretty good.
Once he puts on weight, he'll be.
Yeah, he's just so
little.
Really.
Yeah, he's got what's the ceiling or his comp? He needs to put on like a good 20 NBA pounds of muscle, and then he'll be like a Dirk Nowitzki type.
Do you guys remember?
He's like KG, but better. Do you guys
remember Zion Williamson?
I do remember him.
He didn't need to put on that.
He played in the NBA a couple of years ago, and what happened? Is he in China now? I haven't heard much from him lately. Let's go. Isn't it amazing that this can't miss #1 guy he's like eating himself out of the league?
Well, you ask people now, and they're going to give you wildly different opinions about how good he'll be next year.
I want it on the record. I was out on Zion before he was even drafted. When he blew his shoe out, I'm like, this guy doesn't have it. That was weird.
Well, the brilliant thing is people were calling the draft, the year that the Minnesota took Anthony Edwards. People were like, "Oh, this draft sucks." Like, there's, I guess Edwards number one, and he may end up emerging the most violently out of Zion. Like this entire like sweep of like young players. He has now put himself right in that mix to be that important franchise cornerstone. I know it's two games, so recency bias is running amok here.
I'm just being a little troll. You see the highlight of Zion. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. The Pelicans were on like a Lakers amount of basketball on ESPN a couple of years ago because they Zion. It was sort of like now the Pelicans are in the playoffs. They're a half decent team. It's like, oh, they've just got the number one overall pick who looked pretty good when he played stashed, and like, how good can this team be? How good can he be? And I don't know. The guy is also 400 pounds. The court like buckles when he steps on it. But I don't know.
Yeah, his foot is just never going to get better. It was a foot or an ankle injury.
Foot. He's got knee and foot. It's all the bad stuff.
It's just wild, like that was like the beginning of the year, and it just kind of drug on for.
Well, there was certainly like there was a Palace intrigue thing going on too, because his camp didn't want him to play for a Pelicans team that wasn't going to compete. They wanted to get him. They want him to get into a bigger market, from what I hear at least. And I think they were willing to give him like a red shirt to try to leverage that. But I don't know. It seems pretty stupid if you ask me. But
we'll figure out the Pelicans next year. I don't think they're making a lot of noise. It's also a very dumb bird. I hate that. Like,
all right, so
a bad bird.
$1 million question for you, and then we'll call it a pod. Suns or Bucks?
Heat.
Is it contrarian to say I think the Bucks are going to win again?
I don't think so.
I kind of like Milwaukee.
Okay. All right. I'm on the Suns.
I'll let you take me to a finals game in Milwaukee.
Suns don't match up great against that team, but I believe. I also don't know that the Bucks get there, but I don't really have a good reason for that. So,
it's a great series. I mean, the Suns will be favored and probably rightfully so. But
I don't want to rewrite history, but like, what was the game where like you remember the Duke North Carolina game just now in the Final Four, and it was like basically the two plays that swung it, bang bang, right in consecutive. Back to back right at the end of that game. They missed the 2 free throws. He made a 3 and the game was over. It was like one of those right at the end of the pivotal game 5 that broke.
It was the Bucks led like 120 to 120. The Bucks led like by 8 or 9 with 2 minutes to go, and the Suns ripped off this 8-0 run.
Yeah,
steal the ball, going down to take the lead, and Giannis gets the big block to
seal it.
To seal the game. Yeah, I mean the meltdown was in progress. It looked like the Suns were gonna, steal that one from the pits of despair. And then that was, like I said, there's everything you want to say about CP and Booker and their mid-range and all the like what a great team they are, but it's like Giannis is still the best player on the court. He does things that nobody else does. And he neutralizes some of that Suns just like across the board excellence because he's the best. And he gets the big block, he gets the big dunk, and that's the game. That was the game of the finals. That's where they win it. And he can have that 2 or 3 play sequence when it's all on the line. That I just like over, pretty much in.
Didn't watch the finals. I had Nets series. I had Nets futures.
Yeah,
I was out at that.
You missed a good playoffs.
I watched like one game.
I personally liked having it in July. Like that's a dead time of year.
I
having
like
the finals
bubble.
there.
I would actually say throughout the course of my life, I've probably watched like a higher percentage of first round playoffs, like those Golden State, Cleveland, the Durant years. I don't even know if I watched. Like the finals was like, oh, who even? There was a game tonight. It's just like, I didn't even watch.
Yeah, they had too much of a break. It was too much of a foregone conclusion, and those games themselves were not very competitive, other than the one where J.R. Smith fucked up at the end, which was
I saw it after
incredible.
I remember I was having like dinner with friends when that happened. They were showing me, like, hey, look what just happened. I'm like, oh yeah, the NBA Finals, cool.
Oh yeah, the NBA finals are on.
Care. You know, I probably watched all the first and second round games, and then the finals was like, totally not into it at all.
Okay. Well, Spoon, thanks again for your time. We'll wrap it up here. You can follow him online at JT_Spoon on the Twitter.com. And definitely check out his excellent series of videos about how to be a professional sports advantage player and really get your advantage player influencer career started off on the right foot with Spoon Says on YouTube.
We should.
I think the lecture on a certainty equivalent was actually my low-key favorite gag, but
I like it. Well, thanks again for all your time.
Yeah.
Dan, let's hit the music.
Let's.
Andy wasn't ready to call it a show yet. He wanted to.
I wanted
add
more.
One more. He wanted to add one more.
I got to thinking about that. I probably only watched one game of that Suns finals. I watched every game of the Nets Bucks.
Super good.
Nets Bucks was better.
It was cool to see Giannis kind of take the